We are going to be talking about the First Generation Initiative and how first generation students are supported on campus. But before I get started, I'd like to just ask everyone to keep their microphones off, which it looks like they are, just to keep the noise to a minimum. The session is being recorded for future viewers, so just to keep it quiet, that would be perfect. Any questions that you have can be submitted via the chat, and then later in the session, we'll be able to answer those for you. To start off, I am Josh Helkema. I am a junior at Hobart and William Smith Colleges. I'm a first generation college student from Batavia, New York. I'm on the varsity football team. I work in the Office of Admissions. I'm a big brother through Big Brothers Big Sisters. And I stay pretty busy on campus. I'm a history major with a double minor in music and entrepreneurial studies, and also very involved with the First Generation Initiative. And just recently, I came back from my abroad semester in Maastricht, Netherlands. So that was something very exciting as well, that I've been able to experience this semester. Today, I am here with Professor Christine DeDennis and Shelley Basilio. Murray. Professor DeDennis is the director of the First Generation Initiative, and Shelley Basilio Murray is the assistant director for the First Generation Initiative. And now I'll give them a moment to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Professor DeDennis. I'm going to share my screen. I think you can see it now. Yes? So I like visuals, so I thought I would give you a little bit of an idea of who I am. I am headed into my 22nd, believe it or not, year at Hobart and William Smith Colleges. And so I like to always give people an idea of who I am. So I am a born and bred Canadian, so I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Went to university at the University of Winnipeg as a first generation college student. And then I jumped into my PhD after my undergraduate degree. And after that, I went to Penn State for my postdoc. And then from there, I've been in Geneva. So a little bit about my family. We're quite international. So I have my partners grew up in the US, and I have two daughters adopted from China who are actually sophomore and senior students in college. So they're at home. Actually, they're both in class at the moment upstairs. And then we have the person who runs the house, which is our little dog Zoe, who's 13. But outside of the colleges where I am the chair of the chemistry department, also the director of the First Generation Initiative, and I'm excited to also be the Posse 8 mentor. Hello, there's a couple of Posse 8 students I see on the line, so hello. And outside of that, I think it's really important for us to have activities that kind of challenge us to do things that are not our discipline. So I'm on sabbatical this semester, which means I've been finding a lot of different things to do. I've been doing a lot of home repair or outdoor projects. I like to build things, lots of baking and cooking, a lot of that also going into first gen students as drop-offs. And then reading, listening to lots of music, and of course, much to my dismay, watching way too much television with my kids and doing different things. So that's a little bit about who I am, but I'm excited that you're all on the call and that we get to talk a lot about what it means to be a first generation college student here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shelley Basilio Murray. I am the Assistant Dean of Student Engagement and the Assistant Director of the First Generation Initiative. I am not nearly as cool as Professor DeDennis, so I have not prepared a visual, but I have been with the colleges for about 7 years. My primary responsibilities is in residential education, so housing, RAs, meal plans, that kind of stuff. But what I'm really passionate about and what just brings a smile to my face is working with first generation college students. I was a first generation college student, and being able to share my experience, to share knowledge, and to just build such an important community among our first generation students at HWS has really been a highlight for me personally and professionally. So I'm excited to be spending some time with you this morning, talking about all of the amazing resources and opportunities that are unique to first generation students at HWS.
Perfect. Thank you, Shelley. If you'd like to continue, just in case any of our viewers are unfamiliar, could you explain what it means to be a first generation college student and why we provide additional support for these students on campus?
Absolutely. So first generation college student is a student whose parents did not go to a four-year institution, either of them. That is how we determine that at HWS. And we provide additional resources because it can be really lonely and isolating as a first generation college student to not be able to pick up the phone and say to whomever you live with at home, I'm struggling and I'm not sure what to do. Chances are those family members aren't going to say, well, why don't you go to your faculty member's office hours, right? Because our parents didn't know that. Thinking back to my own experience and not being able to pick up the phone and say, this is really challenging, right? And I don't know what to do. My parents couldn't help me with that. So having a community of faculty, of staff, of other first generation students is so important so that we're providing that network of resources so that it isn't an isolating experience. And it's something to be proud of. Being the first in your family to get a four-year degree is a major deal. And we spend so much time celebrating that and being proud of who we are and making sure that others in our community know that we're here and know that we are working hard to make our families proud.
Thank you, Shelley. That was perfectly summarized. Professor DeDennis, if you could go into a bit more detail about in which ways the First Generation Initiative supports the students on campus.
Sure, I'm happy to. Thanks, Josh. I think one of the things that has been really important for us is building a community. So we have over 400 students, faculty, and staff on campus who are first gen. We have a large community. Josh has got his first gen t-shirt on. If you look now I'm gonna out myself here, but over there on my exercise bike, you'll see my first gen sweatshirt. I'm drinking from a first gen mug. So we have a lot of first gen swag as well. We have that not just to have, but we have the first gen swag because we recognize that one of the ways to support individuals on campus is for them to actually see who other first gen people are. So what I have learned from students is that maybe they won't come to me initially, and Josh is a great example. Hopefully he'll share this later. Might not come to me initially or to Shelley, but what they will do is they will see people wearing sweatshirts and t-shirts and carrying coffee cups. If you see anyone with those items on campus, they're first gen. If you're not a first gen, you don't get that swag. And so it's been really important for us to build a community and support our students in those ways. We have a dedicated First Generation Initiative Student Center. Josh, this is news to you probably. We are expanding and opening a second space. So we have renovated that, which we plan to open after spring break, but we'll wait until the fall to do that. So we now have 2 spaces for students to come and study, to kind of socialize. And in those first gen centers, we have a textbook library. So students who are not able to purchase textbooks, we do have some funds where we can purchase those for the library, but we have had a great community donation from students, from members of the college store, and we have now generated a library that has over 1,100 titles of textbooks that students can use in the library. And if we have multiple copies, we can sign those out on a semester loan basis to some students. Shelley and I send emails and check in with students often. This week or this semester now that COVID's going on, I'm sending weekly updates to say this is what we're doing, how are things going, please let us know what's working or not working. Lots of times there are one-on-one meetings, and those can be informal meetings that just kind of happen as we bump into one another on campus, or they can be more formal meetings where students will reach out and say, can we come and talk to you? in the First Gen Center, we always have a little bit of free snacks and drinks. We have school supplies so that students who need certain small things, those are on the shelves for them to use and take. And we have, word has gotten out, and so we now have some community members who have donated things like toiletries and clothing and other items which go on our shelves. And if students need any of those, they're there for them as well. So I think that, you know, what we're trying to do is help you in any way we can. I would argue that Josh has a strong relationship with both myself and Shelley, and I've never taught him in a class. I will never probably teach him in a class, but all of our interactions are through the First Generation Initiative. And, you know, he has given us just as much as we have been able to give him.
Thank you very much. The resources you spoke about are truly invaluable, I feel, when it comes to a four-year college education. And for me, I was fortunate enough to get involved with the First Generation Initiative early in my time at HWS, and it's really been able to help me and shape my experience while I'm moving through these 4 years here. For me, my first experience, I guess my first interaction with the FGI was my first semester. I walked into the First Gen office, the student space there in Sherrill Hall. It took me a little bit to find. I was like, okay, you know, where is it? It's down here. All right, I got it. You know, I was able to find it, and I walked in, kind of peeked my head in, and was like, what's this? You know, what's going on? And Professor DeDennis was there, smiling, you know, right off, you know, welcoming me into the community. And, you know, really, you know, that was when I was like, these people are here for me and to help me. You know, my initial approach, I guess my initial thought of college was like, it's kind of everyone for themselves, you know, in a sense where, you know, you're going into this big community and group of people. It's like it's on your own to kind of get through these 4 years. That's not the case at HWS at all. It's the complete opposite. You know, as soon as you come on campus, you're going to be welcomed into the community, whether that's the First Generation community, the intercultural affairs community, all these different communities on campus, you know, where you can actually find a place and have people next to you to help you through, you know, these 4 years that are coming up, which is truly amazing. And I was lucky enough to, you know, meet Shelley and Professor DeDennis in my first semester on campus. And these resources that the First Generation Initiative offers are just invaluable. I lived right above the First Generation Center my first year, and I practically lived there, you know, up 2 a.m., just, you know, working away all by myself. It was wonderful. I had my own room, my own office. You know, it's been really great. And that was my first interaction with the First Generation Initiative, and it's been invaluable since. So for the next part of this Zoom, I guess, info session about the First Generation Initiative, Shelley, would you like to kind of talk specifically about like programs and things that, you know, are happening on campus every semester?
Yeah, excellent question. So I would say the largest and most important for incoming first-year students is our pre-orientation day, if you're able to come. Before the hustle and bustle of orientation weekend, First Generation offers a pre-orientation day the day before first-year orientation starts. The benefits are endless for this pre-orientation day. You get to arrive to campus a day early, move in your items a day early. You also get sort of a sneak peek into what it's going to be like. Orientation is super fun, but it's super overwhelming, especially for First Generation students who have absolutely no idea what to expect. So our pre-orientation program gives you sort of a slice into what that's going to be like. We also spend a lot of time talking through some academic tips, some social tips. We do some breakout groups so that students are able to talk with upper class First Generation students about what works and what doesn't for them. We also have the opportunity to break up students and families. So any family members that you'd like to bring to the pre-orientation program, that's an important group too, right? And it's important for us, for Professor DeDennis and I, to support your families in this and help answer any questions they have, and to also reassure them that we've got you, that we will be here for you, and that you're not going to slip through the cracks. It's really important that we get to know all of you on a personal level. I would say that, you know, every first generation student who is involved in FGI, we know in some capacity, and those relationships are genuine and they are important. So I think starting off with the pre-orientation program is going to be super important. From there, we do a lot of different type of events, some focused solely around social experience and some focused more around the academic experience. So we're often bringing in campus partners to do info sessions on study abroad, RA selection, and things like that, in an effort to get you involved in the larger campus community and to help you either with your financial aid application or understanding how study abroad applications work. We want to make sure all of our first gen students are taking advantage of every resource and opportunity on campus. We also have some really great dinners and events where we're cooking together or baking together, or Professor DeDennis is doing the baking and we're doing the eating, which are my favorite type of events that we do. But we also allow students to really dictate what those events look like. So we have a close enough, tight-knit community that students feel comfortable saying, hey, I've never been to Niagara Falls and it's 2 hours away. That's how we started our annual Niagara Falls trip, because students had an interest in that. And if you're 2 hours away from Niagara Falls, you absolutely have to go. So I would say that getting involved in any of the events will be important, but specifically pre-orientation is a big one that we hope to see all of your faces in August.
Thank you, thank you. But to continue, if you do have any questions, please post them in the chat. We'll get to those in just a minute. We would love to answer those for you. But for my final question to Shelley and Professor DeDennis, if you could each kind of just go through maybe some advice you have for incoming students, you know, first generation or not, and how they might, you know, be able to best prepare themselves for the fall.
Sure. So I think the most important thing, and I say this both as the director of the First Generation Initiative, but also something I say as a mother, and I said to my two daughters, ask questions, right? Don't think that, and Josh kind of said he thought, oh, it's every person for themselves, but it's not. Ask questions, ask a lot of questions. Especially if you are first gen, I guarantee you that the questions you have, there are at least 25, 30 other students who have the same questions, even if they're not first gen. So ask questions. Don't ever hesitate to send, I'd say myself or Shelley or even Josh, an email at any time and ask us questions. But also be open to try new things. Because when you get to college, there are just a whole different number of subjects that you're going to be exposed to. There are going to be different people that you're exposed to. But while you're trying those new things, also be flexible. One of the biggest challenges, I think, for all students is that you might come in with a mindset of saying, I am going to do this, and this is the way it's going to work, and this is when I'm going to take a certain class or go abroad or whatever that is. You have to be flexible. You know, we're all perfectly flexible. What we're doing now is a perfect example. We had hoped to be seeing you face to face, but we're seeing you electronically instead. And so understand that there are ways to get things done, expose yourself to new things, but you have to be flexible with what those outcomes are. And sometimes you're going to say, I don't like that. Also meet new people. So meet new people and start to form what I would call connections. You know, finding a true friend or your best friend is probably not going to happen in the first semester. I'm not saying it won't, but research says it takes about 16 months, 16 to 18 months to make best friends. And so cast your net broadly, meet a lot of new people, find out who you kind of jive with. And then as the semester or the year goes on, you can decide how much you want to interact with different people. And then I would say one of the other most important things is create a daily schedule and be ready to tackle time management. You heard Josh say he does a lot of things on campus, and he absolutely does, but I know that he manages his time extremely well. Myself and Shelley have daily calendars that we use. You know, I post on my office door a schedule of not only when I'm teaching, but also when I'm preparing lectures, when I'm in the First Gen Center, when I'm eating lunch, right? Which might sound funny, but is an important thing for students to know. I do that for the students, but I also do that for myself so that I am kind of keeping myself on a schedule and I get in a routine, which makes things a little easier. So, you know, ask questions, be flexible, try new things, but manage your time well. So that would be my initial advice to everybody.
I think my biggest piece of advice would be bring as much confidence to this experience as you're able to, because you belong here. You all belong at HWS, and we are so excited to have you be part of the community. Are you going to have days where you feel lost and lonely? Absolutely. That's normal. Everybody has that. And those are the days that we need to lean on each other, right, to get that support. But you deserve to be here. And we're so excited to have you here. So bring all the confidence that you can. I think Professor DeDennis hit it on the head when she said that time management is important. We see many, many, many first-year students struggle with this more than anything else, I would say, of understanding that you're only in class 12 hours a week. That doesn't mean that you should only be doing 12 hours worth a week of academic, putting 12 hours a week into your academic experience, right? You should be reading and studying and, doing study groups and going to office hours and things like that. And if you're struggling with that, there are a lot of us who are happy to sit down with you and work through that with you. If you're having concerns about living with someone else, again, there are lots of people who can help you through that experience. So aside from the confidence, aside from the time management, I would say be honest with yourself. If you feel like something is difficult, then look for those resources. Look to Josh, look to Professor DeDennis, and look to me, or look to a professor who you've recently got to know, someone who you trust who can help you through that experience. Because when you're honest with yourself and you share those difficulties in the beginning, it is much easier for us to help get you on track and to help get you those supports before you get to a point where you're like, I'm so stressed, I don't know what to do. We will help you then also, but it's better to get those supports early.
Thank you, Shelley and Professor Dennis. Those were both, great comments on, especially from my perspective. I think you guys made perfect on what, students should really look for and try to, aspire to do in their first semester and in their 4 years. Definitely casting your net. I love that analogy. I can't speak to that enough. Really try and get yourself out there and talk to as many people as you can on campus in all different areas, different faculties and staff. Become friends with the campus security guard, become friends with the cleaning staff that walks down your hall every afternoon mopping the floors. There's so many great people on campus, and really just try and get yourself out there. But those were perfectly summarized. I would like to next, take to the questions in the chat. While we answer a couple, feel free to add to them. But first, one question that is a really great question, and I think speaks to, the support we have on campus is, how big is the first generation student population at HWS?
Currently, our HWS student population of first-gen students is around 15%, so it's right around 350 students. And I would say of the 350 students, you know, we have a very active student population. And so I'm going to use an example that just occurred this week. I sent an email, I think Monday or Tuesday, I'm not sure, but Josh could verify that, and just kind of said, checking in, start of week 5, how are things going? And I think it's important here that now I sent a lot of people email. I only got 2 responses so far, but I know I will get more. But the important thing is here, I got a response from a student who I have not interacted with in quite a while. And the student acknowledged that and said, I just want to let you know that even though I haven't interacted, and that's on me, the emails that you keep sending and the updates are really important for me as a student. And I really appreciate that you keep us up to date and keep checking in on us. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. So, you know, I get a lot of emails, and I will say right now that's the email of the week for me, because what it's telling me is even though the student, we haven't seen one another face to face, we haven't necessarily emailed a lot, it's important. So getting out to all of our student population is quite important. We always communicate to all students when we talk about events or things going on, or when we're doing the general, you know, baking events or whatever that is. But it's about 350 students. And on top of that, we have somewhere between 75 and 100 faculty and staff on campus, many of them in leadership positions. So Shelley, right? We also have the director of career services, the director of global education, the director of student life, right? All of these people, and I will tell you, they all have a very soft spot for their fellow first gens in their hearts, because we understand what it means to be a first generation college student. And we want to make sure that your experience is better than the experience we had.
Perfect. Thank you, Professor Dennis. We'll have time for one more question from the chat, and it looks like there's a question about support for parents, parents of first-generation college students on campus.
Shelley, do you want to take that?
Shelley,
yeah, sure. So as I had talked about earlier during pre-orientation, we have some breakout sessions that are specifically for parents and families, because we understand that we want to include, you know, we understand the importance of including family in the conversation, right? So those sessions are really important. From there, we have made some really great connections with parents and families. Before the call started, Josh and I were checking in, asking how his mom and dad were doing, right? Because we know them, we see them when they come to campus. They, you know, are always stopping by the First Gen initiative when they're on campus, or stopping in to say hello. We have heard from many parents who are either concerned about their child or who have a question. Professor Dennis and I are certainly open to talking with parents who are concerned or who have questions about support and resources. So we definitely see ourselves as a resource for parents as well. That being said, if a student is struggling with something academically or something like that, you can expect that we will be bringing the student into the conversation as well, because we want to make sure that this is a conversation where everyone is included, and we're providing students with holistic support from home, from first gen, from academics, from a social perspective. So we certainly welcome parent communication and interaction.
Josh, let me, are there any other questions, or can I ask you a question from the audience?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I think that I'm going to ask you to share something, and maybe this will help to kind of solidify the type of community we are. So a few years ago, we took a group of students to Stanford University for a first gen conference. And Shelley and I had planned that conference and students, but something else happened with Josh before we left, and we were able to coordinate a particular visit with him. So Josh, could you kind of talk about how that started kind of out on the quad, and then how that ended out at Stanford?
Yeah, so it was really amazing. I was just kind of walking on the quad, nothing, out of the ordinary. And I just was wearing my Buffalo Bills jacket. And somebody just stopped me, while I was walking on the quad, and it happened to be Bob O'Connor. He works in the Office of Advancement. He is the vice president for advancement. And he just happened to stop me, and say, hey, like, I'm a Bills fan too, just kind of got this conversation going. And we just got talking about he was like, what's going on? How are you doing? Just kind of wanted to know about how things are going for me. And I was telling him that, where I'm going to Stanford in a couple, maybe a week, but it was maybe a week before we would leave. And he's like, oh, do you know who works at Stanford in the athletic department? I was like, no, I have no idea. Another first generation college student that went to HWS is Jamie Breslin, and he is the athletic director for Stanford University's athletics. And he's like, let me connect you. No hesitation. He's like, let me connect you to Jamie. You'll love him. He's a great person, great, just a great human to meet. And he connected us, and sure enough, we get to Stanford, and with a warm welcome, Jamie's there with a golf cart to like take us for a tour around Stanford's athletic facilities, and just kind of engage with him and talk to him about, his process of moving through HWS and onto his career in athletics. And it was just really amazing to see that connection across the entire United States, cross country. It really shows that this first generation community extends much further, than it might seem on campus. There's many alumni that would be willing to talk, willing to just engage and kind of, guide you through this process, which is really amazing. And, meeting Jamie was amazing because, you can shake his hand, talk to him face to face, and kind of ask him, and he'll give you an honest answer, an honest perspective on, what his process was, and, any questions you have as well. But it was really amazing because, Bob was an amazing person to meet, Mr. O'Connor, to meet him, and then just to kind of develop that relationship. It was really cool to see that within my first year, these just helpful gestures from, different people on campus was really great. I hope that answers that question specifically well. If you have any, I don't know, anything else, but if not, I think that is a good conclusion to take for this meeting. We're going to wrap this up for now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you have further questions, you can surely get in touch with Professor DeDennis or Shelley, Basilio Murray, if you're looking for them on the school website. That would be amazing to reach out to. I would love for you guys to talk to me as well. Maybe if you email Shelley or Professor DeDennis and you have questions, you could kind of share them with me. We'll see how that works. But we'll have our emails there for you. And there's always an admissions counselor that can connect with you. And really just any questions you have, feel free to reach out. And we thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to see you this fall. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.